Hello. So I've not done a video for a while, but I thought I'll give you a go now and show you one of the quilts I'm working on how to do the stitch out on it. So it's an Anita Goodesign on-point animals, baby animals. And what I'm going to try and show you in the video is how these folded fabric corners are created and how the whole quilt block is created. It's a lovely design. It's a baby quilt I'm working on for a new great niece. So there's 12 designs and I'm working on 2 of each, and then there's corner designs to build it up. So I'm working on the 2 different, doing 2 of each design, which will give me 24 blocks. Then the 25th block is going to be a personalised block with a name on. So I'm doing them in the 2 colours, this peach and like neutral brownie, light brown. I'm working with art gallery fabric, so it's 2 different shades, which I think they complement quite well. So far I've done the pigs, I've done the bunnies, there's a squirrel. Now this one is already trimmed up. I have got some trimmed up so you can see it's like that. You've got the edges and it's trimmed to 1/2 inch, which is what Anita Good tell you to do, so that it'll stitch together along those lines, the blocks, when we're ready. So on the other side there, you'll stitch just right along that line to join the edges together. But yeah, that's the squirrel. Squirrel in pink. Oh, the duckies. Oh, I think that's fox, another one trimmed already. You can see. And there's a deer that I've done. Ducks. And we're here again with the fox. And the sloth is the one. So I've done the sloth in the peach. So today that's the one we're going to stitch in the brownie colour that I'm doing them in. So I'll just put these away and hopefully we can get the machine. The reason why I've not done the videos is this room's a bit awkward for setting things up, because the light's not very good, the space isn't very good, I'm very crowded in. I was hoping my sewing room would be ready, but not to be. The windows are slowing us up on that one. So I'm just going to move this. I hope it's not too jiggy to the screen. As you can see here, I have, let me get a pen rather than the mouse so I'm not in the way. So as you can see here, fetch the designs up. You can see all the 12 designs and I'm up to the sloth. So I'm going to set that on my screen. And you can see it kind of looks confusing with all these placement lines and stitch lines, but it's not. It's really quite straightforward once you start stitching. So we've got it set up for embroidery now, and I'm going to move back hopefully and get the screen in place for showing you. So we're set up. I'm going to thread my white thread up, because I don't change the threads, although it's showing you there to change all the colour. It's only colour check. It's so that the machine will stop when you have to put the different bits down. So I'll just get this threaded up. Now I'll show you a little bit of what I'm going to be working with. So my hoop is the 9.5 by 9.5, and I've already hooped what I'm using as my stabiliser up, which is a muslin, a cotton muslin. People ask me quite often why I use a cotton muslin. I find it creates a really soft quilt. I used to always use poly mesh, but I found sometimes that the quilts could still be the stitching could still be a little bit stiff with the poly mesh on it and that. So I switched last year to using muslin and I haven't gone back. I'm using a bamboo Vilena, whatever we want to call it, bamboo mixed wadding. I'm using Art Gallery Snow White for the main body. Now that has been, I've starched that. I've used my best press starch and I've just starched it up to keep it going. And then I have all my pieces for the corners are pre-cut. So there's that size and that size for the longest one. So I have them all at the side ready. I have my iron and the press at the side ready. And we're now ready. Hopefully you can, oh, it's falling. Told you it wasn't a very safe setup. Right, I'm going to try and get this in the hoop and hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing, and I'll try and move in as and when. So we're doing the first stitch out, which I've loaded my white. Actually what I wanted to do first, and I forgot, was just bring up my bobbin thread, if I can. There we go. So I've got them two there. I just like to bring up the bobbin thread, especially, right, and we're going to, off we go, and we're going to stitch the placement line for the wadding. Now bear with me on this. Usually when I get back to this end, for some reason I get the re-thread mark. Doesn't seem to take very well. I'm not sure why. It might not even do it on this one now I'm videoing, but we'll see. Hope you can hear me above the machine when the machine's on. See, does that every single time. Snaps off and re-threads, always just on that one corner. Have no idea why. Don't follow my bad habits of pulling the thread back. Do as I say, not as I do, is the famous saying, isn't it? Anyway, I'll re-thread it. Ooh. And off we go again. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to place the bamboo wadding down. There's two sides to this bamboo wadding. There's the smooth and then there's the back's a bit rougher. I always put it so the rougher bits face down. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it's the way I've done, and boy does it make fluff in your machine. You do need to, you're just making sure you place it. I think I've cut these, can I be correct and say I've cut them 10 or 12? 10. I've cut 10-inch squares, pre-cut all the 10-inch squares. So we're off now and we're going to tack down the wadding. I have nothing if I feel it needs to just be pulled out. And that's finished, stitched down, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trim this around here. So I take it over to my little trimming bit. Let's see if I can move it to so you can see me trimming it. Can we? I don't know. if you need to see me trimming it, you'll probably just see my hair more than anything. But let's... So I'm using these double from GS UK scissors. They trim nicely in the hoop. And then the next step, when we've done this, I'm going to be doing, we're going to place the backing fabric, the white backing fabric that I've chosen to use. So let me just do this. I should one day start and do it as a live, shouldn't I? And then, but you can always guarantee if you do live, something will go wrong, as it did with my one and only live that I did for you all a few years ago. In lockdown actually, so more than a few years ago. Anyway, that's done. It's trimmed now. You can see. And I'm going to pop it back in the hoop. You're going to see me take it in and out of this hoop and wonder what I'm doing half of the time. I'm hopefully going to help you too. So what I'm going to do now is, because, and this is just me, the next step, it stitches out a placement stitch for the white fabric, but I'm just going to skip that and go on straight onto placing the white fabric down, because it's nicely starched, it's nicely pressed. I'll just straight away stitch it, as you know. So just going to place that evenly over the wadding on each side, and it's going to stitch the shape, the centre part of the centre part of the design, and I'll probably trim that up. Next, I'm just getting to make sure this is staying smoothed out. I always use this rather than my fingers, because I have had a needle through the finger and needed surgery to remove it, so I do now always use this. Better? I don't know. Okay, so the next stage now is you can take it out the hoop and you can trim this, but I tend to leave it until, because the next stage is we're just going to stitch what is the stippling of the main design. So it's just going to stitch out stippling for a few minutes. I'll show you that a bit closer up if I can. I've got it there, not top then. So it's stitching. I don't know if you can really see it with it being white on white. It's kind of hard, but I don't want to waste the fabric and do it in a different colour, so it would show better for you. go, that's finished now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take it out the hoop. I'm going to trim around those stitch lines to create the centre circle. Can I get the board back? I'll move it forward for you. Okay, so again with my double billed scissors. Stitch, trim all the way round. And then we're going to do the folded corners now. Normally I do the folded corners in white, the thread the same, but you don't see this thread on the folded corners, so I'm going to do a darker colour so you can see what the placement stitches look like. So I'll thread it up with a darker colour and we'll get these folded corners done and see where we go from there. Right, can you see? So we've still got the corners here in the wadding and the centre bits cut out ready, and that's going to go back onto the machine, and hopefully I can turn and I'm not going to have to keep moving it too much for you. So I'm going to unthread this white, pop it down there, and I think I will do, I'm not sure, I don't want the stitching to show through, so we'll try, will that show up? Yeah, I'll just try this. It's just a random colour and it will help you to see when I say to you what we're doing. It'll stitch the placements, and I just keep to the same colour. It does tell you to change colours each time you do a different step, but you really don't need to. It is, like you say, it's just for the designer to know what's happening. And what the machine's going to do now is it's going to stitch the placement stitch for the first piece of folded fabric. And the first two pieces are the small squares that I've cut. And again, this has been starched and ready. So, I don't know if you can see that. Put in the green there, can you? There, where's it gone? That edge. There. You can see there, it's stitched like a little triangle, and we're going to place the folded fabric down along that green line with the fabric facing down inwards. So by that I mean, let's see if I can get in a bit better for you. So I'm going to take the fabric, and that's the front of the fabric, that's the back of the fabric, and we're going to just place it on just past, I tend to place it just past that green line there. Yeah, and you see where I've placed it? It will then tack the piece of fabric down and make sure there's enough overhang either side. The pieces are slightly bigger, so you should get your spacing quite well. And you see it's stitched it down there. Now what you do now is you flip that over, finger press it, or as I do, I just get my little iron and I press it just to give a nice firm finish. And what it will do now is it will stitch that into place. And I'm not sure if I should use white for this. I'm going to try it I hope I've not ruined a block by doing it in the darker colour, but if I carry on with white, I don't think you'll notice very much. Because it's the join line anyway, that green, so it should be okay. So now we're going to have to add the second piece of, so it's going to be the tack down for the second piece of folded fabric again. The same small piece that I used last time. As you can see there what I've done. And again, so you take it, your fabric is facing this way into the centre of the design. You've got 2 stitch lines, and I always put it on the second stitch line. So let me see if I can show you. If you can see there, that's the placement, that's that. But I find if I put the edge of the fabric along that line, it gives me a nice turnover. And the fabric facing down, best side of the fabric facing down, and you just place it there, little squares over, yeah, and it will stitch that in place again. I'm going to do 4 of these corners. I'm going to keep it running for all 4, so you can sort of get the gist of how it works out. You don't have to press it down with an iron. You can just finger press it. I just feel that when I'm pressing it, I get a nicer finish on the edge of the folded fabric. Now it's going to stitch in place. So the edge of here, where is going to be the joining line, this dark line now, so it should be okay, it shouldn't show up on the block. And the final one is going to be the stitch down for the larger piece. It's virtually double the size of what the other 2 pieces were. And we start off with the placement stitch again. Yeah, so that's the placement stitch. As you can see, let me get my pointer. Hopefully you can see now clearer. We've got 2 lines here, 1, and I always put the edge of the fabric along the second line. You can, if you're very clever, put it along the first line, but I prefer to do it on the second line just to make sure I do catch it every single time. And place that down just on that second line and stitch. You can as well, you can also, if you choose, trim these edges right up to the stitch line if you prefer to. I haven't found when I've done these that I've needed to do that, but if you're a perfectionist and you want things that iron won't work there, just put it out a little bit. There we go. And we're going to stitch that now in place. Oh, that's my thing. And it's now going to stitch. So now I'm going to do and that's it, that's the first corner stitched out. Now I'm going to do the other 4 for you on the video. Makes it a little bit of a longer video, but just so you can get the gist of how they go. So I've used the dark fabric so you can see that that's the edge. So when the blocks are being joined, I'll be stitching right along that edge, and I'm going to have to be accurate with that one because I've used a darker colour. But you can see you've got the 3 different folds of the fabric, the first one, the second and the third. We're going to do the same one, the same method on each corner now. So without further ado, we will, first placement one, I'll talk you through it. So it's literally the fabric, the machine stitches, you place your fabric, flip it, stitch in place. It is flip and fold. The method is flip and fold. So again, along the second line, I like to put it fabric facing down. The fabric is always facing into the design. Flip it over, finger press or with your iron, whichever you find works best for you, whichever you like to do. Pop it back under, flip it back on, and we're off. Stitches it down, get the second piece ready. Second placement line. You can see fabric facing down and facing inward along the line, equal gap on each side if you can, and stitch. Going to take it out of the hoop to do the press because it's easier for me. I don't need to press it down, back in the hoop, stitch it down, off you go. Then I'm going to get the big piece, so it's 2. You do the 2 small pieces first, then the big piece on each square. You stitch it into place. Again. So now we're doing the placement stitch for the large piece, the last piece on this corner. You see what I'm doing? Can you spot point it out to you both again? There's the 2 lines. On the second line, the furthest away line, facing towards the centre, face down fabric and stitch. I'm going to do this one, just finger pressing, so you can see why I like to press it, because I think just giving it a press keeps it in place and gives it a crisper finish. But I've done this one so you can make your mind up if you can spot any difference, or you think I'm wasting my time ironing. So there we go. There's our 2 top corners. And we're going to move down now and do the, not sure if you can see on this one, I might have to move it. So we're doing the third corner now. Stitching the placement line for the small piece. Yeah, you can just about see it, can't you? Fabric on the furthest away line. Fabric facing down, fabric facing outwards to the design, stitch the fold line. There we go. I'm going to flip it over, take it out and press it, because that's what I like to do. Sometimes some of these, like taking it out of the hoop and pressing it for each single one instead of just finger pressing it, but yes, it makes it a little bit of a longer, monotonous maybe stitch out, but I always think taking that extra bit of time gives you that better quality finish on your design. So we've got one more square. Stitch the placement. Add your fabric. Stitch your fold line. Ooh. Next piece after this is the big. So each block takes 8 of the small pieces, small rectangles, and 4 of the large rectangles. And I do pre-cut them. I pre-cut them all, so I've got enough to do all 25 blocks pre-cut. I do like to pre-cut all of my fabrics when I'm doing things like this, so that it's, yes, it's a bit, you know, you might spend a day doing all your cutting, but then you're straight into each block one after the other because everything's prepped. And once it's all prepped, it does feel like it comes together a lot quicker because you're not stopping and cutting a piece and trimming pieces and everything else that you do. Placement now for the final long piece, and then we've got the final corner to do next. Final piece on this corner we're now stitching. And the placement stitch furthest away here. Just line it up, making sure you've got a good placement. Having the fabric starched helps as well, because that just keeps it nice and neat. And stitch. Stitch and fold. Getting on to the final corner now. Trying to keep this video to an hour, so an hour's long enough to upload, but Facebook doesn't like them too long. I don't even know if this will directly upload to Facebook or if I'll have to just download it to the blog first. Right, so we're on now the final corner. No, we need to. So as you can see, each of the pieces has 3 different stitch outs. So it has the placement line, the fold line, and then the line to stitch it in place. So it does that for each piece that you're doing, that you're going to do as a folded fabric piece. In place and stitch. Not sure that's going to catch, but we'll find out. Press it over. And the final piece of folded fabric is down. And I'm just going to fold that final piece over, and we've now just got to stitch that down, and I can show you. You'll see probably better now because I've used the darker thread, and we're going to then thread up ready to do the main design, which is the slough, this one, and I can get it done.